Okay. Our first guest tonight will be Danielle Caminiti, and she is a civil law attorney in New York, and she has written a cookbook. And we're going to hopefully find out all about the different recipes that she's written. I think it's called Have You Covered in the Kitchen? And there may be more to it. Danielle?
One of the things that seems to be very interesting is the title of her book. There are 70 authentic recipes. And the title of the book is, ready for this? Try to get the pun. Litigation to Salivation. Now, as an attorney, she's a litigator. But as a cook, she's getting your salivary glands up and going.
I guess she's a salivator.
She's a salivator. One of the things that I find interesting is she's taken American background, and I can't wait to talk to her. As an Italian-American myself, I'm looking forward to hearing.
Okay. Joyce, a civil law attorney, Danielle Caminiti, is with us, and we're going to hear about her salivating cookbook. Danielle, welcome to In Focus.
Thank you very much for having me, Dr. Dan and Joyce.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good evening. I can't wait to hear all about this. I'm Italian-American, too, and I've often thought about doing this. What gave you a shot to get this done?
Oh, wonderful. It's both a blessing and a curse, I say, to be Italian-American.
Yeah, you're right.
So I pivoted from the courtroom to the kitchen in the post-pandemic world when the courts kind of were on pause in March of 2020. And everybody was home, as you know, and I turned to my kitchen because I felt empowered by being able to cook for my family, and that was one thing that I knew how to do and do well. Although I'm not formally culinary trained, I have both my grandparents who have now left us, were wizards in the kitchen and taught me a lot just by osmosis. And living with one of them and seeing the other one in Little Italy in Manhattan regularly, I learned a lot of Italian-American recipes.
Well, let me ask you. Well, I'm sorry.
Sure.
As someone growing up, did you always find that there were a million people at your dining table and they were always able to feed all these people?
Oh, forget about it. We had two dining tables. We had the big table where the adults were, and then we had the small table where the kids were because they couldn't all fit at the big dining room table. So I was always at the small table, and of course it was always crowded, family, friends, you name it. And Sunday dinners were huge back then, and I still try to keep to the Sunday dinner tradition, although they're a lot smaller nowadays. But the traditions, we always had the traditions growing up. Did you as well?
We did. And in fact, I've tried to keep some of the traditions not as large as they were back then, but it was a fun thing to look forward to. And I could always know that whatever my mother and my nana were making, it was enough to feed not only the people that had come for dinner, but all the neighbors, too. So that leads me to
exactly.
It leads me to my next question. When you put your ideas together, and I didn't do it, I was very remiss. I never really begged my mother or Nana to write down the recipes. They would always say, look, guarda, you know. So
right.
When they passed,
exactly.
My sisters and I tried to piece them together, and we didn't really get it all. Did that happen to you, and how did you go about putting this cookbook together with these recipes?
That's exactly right. And that is one of the main reasons why I actually wrote this cookbook. It was partly because I have a son, and he wouldn't have the luxury of having these recipes written down because I didn't have them written down. Like you, I asked a lot of questions, and nothing was ever measured. Nothing was quantified. It was just a pinch of this and a punch of that and a sprinkle of this. And And even now, the most challenging thing for me to actually author this cookbook was I may not make the same recipe the same way every time I make it. I may add more of one thing and less of another seasoning the second time around. So it was really challenging to actually get it down on paper and quantify all the ingredients so that I can actually show someone how to make it. So, which, you know, that's the challenging part of it. But I did it because I really did want to have these family recipes memorialized that I didn't have the luxury of having.
Yeah, I think that's a very important aspect about this, you know, to memorialize them, because after the generation passes, you begin to forget. And you're right, many of them don't taste exactly like, so it's become a family fun thing. What should we add? What should we take away? Tell us some of the recipes that are included in this wonderful cookbook.
Well, so thank you. I have a bunch of Italian-American recipes, so I call them the family recipes, ones that have been traditionally around for a long time, and many Italian-Americans know them, such as linguine alla vongole or just Sunday sauce. Some people call it Sunday gravy. I don't want to start a big debate.
I was going to say, let's not start a debate.
Exactly. But I do also have not only Italian-American recipes, but I have a sprinkling of recipes just by virtue of me growing up and living in New York City. There are so many different cultural restaurants around, so many different types of cuisine. And I've lived in 4 of the 5 boroughs, and I'm a foodie by heart. I am definitely a foodie, so there's not many things that I don't like. So I have a little bit of everything in the cookbook. I have some Asian-influenced dishes. I have Indian. I have Greek. So there's a couple of things in there that would come as a surprise for people that just think of this as an Italian-American cookbook. It is kind of a New Yorker cookbook, I would call it.
I like that. I like that because you're right. I also grew in New York and have been influenced by all the neighbors that were on the same floor who were very different nationalities. I love the idea that just blended them together.
Thank you. It's a melting pot. You know, my grandparents both grew up in the Little Italy section of Manhattan. And even down there was a mishmash of all ethnicities. It was like a little small United Nations. Even though it was Little Italy, they had everything around. So there was the Chinatown. There were the Chinatown recipes that my family was very adept at making. So we have like takeout Chinatown spare ribs in the book. I have Peking pork chops in the book. So it's just a little bit of everything that I thought would be really helpful for novice cookers and also for experienced cookers.
Would you tell our audience the title of your book and how they can get it? I'm looking so forward to getting a copy.
Thank you. I would love to send you one. So the cookbook is called From Courtroom to Cucina. Cucina means kitchen in Italian, and for those who don't know. And it's 70 authentic recipes that took me from litigation to salivation. So I'm still a practicing attorney, but I pivoted to the kitchen while courts were on pause. And it's nice in the virtual world to be able to do both things simultaneously while being at home and making the most of the pandemic.
Yes.
And they get the book on Amazon and also on my website, which is Have You Covered, you like the letter U, inthekitchen.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under Have You Covered in the Kitchen.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful cookbook. I'm just curious about one last thing. Does your son cook?
He helps me a little bit. His role is that of a taster. And it's funny because when I say, as a trial attorney, when you say you cannot disturb a jury verdict, when my family tastes recipes, I think of them as a jury. So he's mostly a juror in rendering a verdict on my recipes. But I've tried to teach him some skills, and it's really important for them to learn, kids to learn skills in the kitchen. So I can't say enough about home ec, and I don't know if the curriculum teaches it so much anymore in school, but I think it's really an important skill to have for men, for women, and for children.
Danielle, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.